Welcome to Meet the Author, where you can join in on insightful conversations with best-selling and award-winning indie published authors. Your hosts today are Rob and Joan, who themselves are indie published authors, book publicists, and paranormal investigators with Tampa Bay Spirits, based in Tampa Bay, Florida. Thanks for dropping by. And now, on with the show.
Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Joan. Thank you for watching the show today. Whether you're watching live or you're listening to the podcast later on just on audio, we're really glad that you decided to be part of our audience.
Tonight's show is pre-recorded. It's a brand new episode. We're traveling, so we have a return guest with us. But before we introduce her, tell you a little bit about what's coming up here. This coming Saturday, October 14th, will be Episode Rewind, and it's the rebroadcast of our 100th episode celebration.
Oh.
We had authors. We had 6 authors, I believe. Joe Conjal, Marjorie Deering, Jamil Effin, Tori Gates, Genaro Torres Celis, and Douglas Gardam. They were all our guests, and we had a good time.
We did have a good time.
A little longer show than usual.
Yes,
but
they were also interesting.
Yeah. Now, next Wednesday, October 18th, we have a little different kind of a show because the authors are comedy writers, basically. There's a husband and wife duo, Jeffrey Kipple and Mindy Blackstein. Their husband and wife, authors of the Ridiculous series. That may tell you something. So it sounds like it could be fun. So make sure you tune in next Wednesday, right here, same time, same place, 7 o'clock Eastern time. After this show, make sure you tune in to Voice of Indie podcast. It's on Blog Talk Radio. The instructions will be at the end of our show. There'll be a little tutorial on how to get over to that. They tell you exactly how to get there. And then every Wednesday afternoon, you want to also, if you really like to read and you like to hear about authors, Book World, The Great Escape with C.J. Peterson and Mike Clifton. And what you do is you go to YouTube and follow at C.J. Peterson. And that'll give you notifications on when that show is going to be on. It's, generally 1 o'clock Central Time, U.S.
Speaking of YouTube, you can find us on Meet the Author Podcast YouTube, and you can actually watch this show. And when we do a live show, this is a live show, but it's pre-recorded. But when it's a live, not pre-recorded, you can comment and you can ask questions and have really a fun time. So subscribe and share to Meet the Author Podcast.
Yeah, at Meet the Author Podcast, and that'll take you to Indie Book Source page. So,
which is us.
All of our episodes are there. You can watch them and laugh and have a good time.
Yes. And you can watch them. You can watch. Yes, sometimes we cry. You can watch them live, though, from that channel.
Right.
And
we broadcast it live on there.
Yes. One of the many channels it's broadcast live on.
So not too long ago, we had author Shelley HANSON on. And
she writes under the name Michelle Hanson, but she's been known as Shelley Hanson her whole life.
Right. And we found it to be fascinating, and she's got a whole lot more she'd like to tell us about. So why don't we bring her in?
Plus, people asked a lot of questions that she'd like to address that we just didn't have time.
Right,
because it's such a big
It's a huge
scope.
subject, and something most people don't know much about. So
yeah, including us.
So why don't we welcome Michelle to our stage?
Hi, Shelley.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to join everyone again.
Oh, you're more than welcome. I'm sorry that we can't do it as a live broadcast because I know we had a lot of audience participation. People had questions and
yes.
They had more questions, I think. So
I can address some of those today.
That's a good one.
I should mention ahead of time, I will be showing pictures. I will be showing shells. So anyone who's just listening and can't see what we're doing, please email me. I'd be happy to send any pictures. Just let me know what you want to see, and I'd be more than happy to send them.
And also they can go and watch it on our YouTube as a video.
True. And you can see the actual shells in live.
And actually, you'll have the YouTube. Also, you'll have the video, which you can show on your website or wherever you're gonna embed it. So there are lots of places where people can see this video.
Right.
No, I was thinking when you mentioned the comics that you're going to be interviewing, you're literally covering everything from the ridiculous to the sublime. And
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had some very deep subjects on with authors really talking about some deep things,
Mhm.
and good mental illness and,
Yeah,
grieving over a loss. And we've,
very profound.
yeah, it's been good.
So along those lines,
About the
first of all,
profound.
tell us what is a reading? What is reading shells?
Okay. So what we established in the last podcast was the idea that seashells carry messages. And that comes from the behaviors of the animals or how they've interacted with humans throughout history. You can find something unique about each, and that's its contribution to the language. But to get a message, to do a reading, I wrote Ocean Oracle, and it's actually a boxed kit. And I just lost contact. Are you seeing me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
I've got Ocean Oracle up.
Okay, perfect. So that's a boxed kit, and it comes with, let me hold these up a little bit here, 2 full color posters. And with these pictures, you're actually getting 200 shells. And the method for doing a reading is very simple. All you do is look at these foldouts and see what gets your attention. It could be, wow, that's really pretty. It could be, ooh, it bothers you. Either way, if it gets your attention, it counts. And they're numbered 1 through 200. So once you know what's grabbing you, you can jot down the numbers. And then it comes with decks of cards. So all you do is use the number on the card that matches whatever the number was that got your attention. Take out those cards, arrange them any way you want to. When people think tarot, they come with a certain number of cards in a certain spread. This is not that system. This is literally interacting with you so that you can make any arrangement you want to. They can all be in one group, they can be in separate groups. And then once you have your arrangement, you turn over the cards and the meanings are on the back. So once you have that arrangement, based on that, you string together the meanings, and that's what delivers the sentences and paragraphs of your message.
Okay.
So for instance, I thought I would share one reading to show you like how profound these can get. I was doing a reading back in 2008, and I was in Ohio. I lived in Massachusetts, but I was in Ohio for a psychic fair. Someone looking at this saw this shell that my finger's pointing to. Whoops, this one, 119. And just so you can see, that happens to be this shell. But when he saw it, he said, okay, I admit it. I'm interested in this shell. It's just the two of us. I'm thinking, who's he admitting this to? But this shell is called the wedding cake clam. Someone thought it looked like the icing on a wedding cake. Then he looked at the shells again. And with that, he saw this shell, which is called the crown conch, which happens to be, all the shells are my own shells. I just took pictures of them. So this is the crown conch. And rightly named, you can see it kind of looks like a crown with the peaks there. And he also saw this shell, which is called a slipper shell. Make sure it's high enough. And that's this shell. Someone thought it looked like a slipper you could slide your foot into. Sometimes they're called boat shells. So he's got the shell about wedding. But then he has the shell about the crown conch, which has to do with courtroom, lawyers, legal situations. And the slipper shell. Now, the slipper shell, we didn't get into this when we were talking about reproduction, but they live in colonies on top of each other. The smallest on top is male, and the largest on the bottom is female. She's releasing a steady supply of hormone. She's the oldest. When she dies, the hormone level changes, and the next male in line becomes female. So during their life cycle, they're all going to start off as male and end up as female. They get to experience life as both genders. And slipper shell's message is, if you were to say to a male, you can't be a stay-at-home dad, that's a woman's job, the slipper would say, well, wait, I'm going to be a woman. And if you said, you can't be an astronaut or a doctor, that's for men, slipper shell would say, well, I used to be a man. So all those arguments go out the window. And that's what it's about. It's about pushing back against society's dictates, stereotypes. So when you look at what he had, okay, I'm interested in that. It's the wedding. Legal situation revolving pushing back against society's dictates. This was in 2008. We were in Ohio. California had just passed a law allowing gay marriage. So when he was saying, all right, I admit I'm interested in that, this was his subconscious that he had pushed down, finally having it on his radar that it could be possible that legally he would be able to marry a same-sex partner. So that's what the shells were trying to bring to his awareness. And that's how they work. They empower us by bringing our own thoughts and feelings that are at a subconscious level that may be limiting us in some way or no longer serving us, to give us that option that if we change a belief once it's in our awareness, we can reshape what we create for ourselves. So it's not predicting the future. I want to make that clear. It's understanding who you are right now.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
When you told him about the shells, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did he see that for himself, or did he need your help interpreting that? I'm just curious.
When he realized, he said, all right, I admit I'm interested in this. And he didn't know what it meant or what it was.
Yeah.
When I started talking about what it was, you could see the light bulb. Yeah.
Okay.
He understood what it was saying because he was ready.
Right. And so you also touched upon something you said about who you are right now. Mm-hmm. So if I looked at certain shells today, mm-hmm. and I would pick out certain things, right? And hey, listen, I'm old enough to know how much I've changed. I don't think like I used to think. Okay.
Okay.
I've learned a few things. And so then if I were to look at it again in a few years and life has, molded me and changed me, I would then be attracted to different shells, perhaps.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm sure of it.
So if someone has this set, right,
mm-hmm.
they can occasionally go through it and kind of check where they're at. Do you know what I mean?
Journal where they are then and then see where they are in the future and compare. Absolutely. What will happen is it looks like a lot, 200 shells.
Right.
You're only going to see what you need to. The rest just kind of fade into the background and you don't notice them.
Yeah, you don't care.
Right. Because they're not supposed to be getting your attention. Right. The message is coming from your higher self that wants to bring something to your awareness for your own highest good. And then it's up to you what you do with it.
Right. Right. So whatever you're attracted to or whatever is of notice to you, you may not be attracted. You might be repulsed. Yeah.
Many times the message is more powerful if you're bothered by something.
Yeah, I would think so.
Or it could remind you of something.
Yeah. If it makes you uncomfortable or if it makes you sad or, whatever. Yeah, I can see that.
And the other piece in the box kit is this book. So that if you look at the back and it says wedding, why does it mean that? Or, legal problems, why does it mean that? Or defying society's dictates, what does she see in that shell that would mean that? This explains where all the meanings come from.
Excellent. Excellent. So really, I can understand where people would get the idea that it's like a tarot reading, but it's not.
Right.
Though actually a tarot reading isn't either what people think that it is either.
It's complicated. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I called it Ocean Oracle, for the alliteration as well, but so that they wouldn't be thinking tarot spreads.
Right, right. Which I think can be looked at in different ways, actually, myself.
Yes. And I was trying to duplicate the process of having a reading with the actual shells.
Right.
That's why I made the cards. It's as close as I could get to duplicating. But
instead of everyone having to find 200 shells.
come to my house or find their own.
Exactly.
Yes.
Excellent. Very, very good.
So
I think that's pretty clear, Shelley.
thank you. Thank you for the chance to explain that method. But then that's 200 shells. So what happened was the shells kept teaching me. And when I wrote Ocean Wisdom, that was about 50 shells diving even deeper. And so, as it says, lessons from the Seashell Kingdom, they're master teachers. And I wanted to bring this up because I believe people are now willing to concede that the octopus is so intelligent. We've got My Octopus Teacher for Netflix. We've got Remarkably Bright Creatures as a book you can read about the intelligence of the octopus, Marcellus. So what I want to do is just point out that the octopus is a relative of the other mollusks, the snails and the clams, and that snails also have intelligence. So I want to show a few examples to prove that point. There's something called a carrier shell. So let me show you 2 carrier shells. Okay. So these are carrier shells. If you look underneath, you can see the relationship. But this one adds stones to its surface. This one adds shells to its surface. And there's a purpose for that. It used to be thought that this was for camouflage. But the reason I didn't think that was true is because there's one other carrier shell that I have. It's called the sunburst carrier. It hasn't added anything to its surface. So it's not camouflage. But these animals live on mud. And what this is doing is spreading out their center of gravity, sort of like a snowshoe effect, so they won't sink in the mud. So this one adds rocks. It's called the geologist for obvious reasons. And this one, you have to ignore the glass sponge. This one adds shells or whatever is in its environment. But what I want you to see, if you can, is the shells are all facing with the opening facing up. If these were randomly being added, some of these should be facing down because they're on mud. And if some of these were facing without the opening up, that would be catching in the mud. This animal is thinking about what it's doing. So if it needed to add another shell, if its body grows, it would have calcium that it's absorbed from the water, and then it extrudes the liquefied calcium, takes a shell with the opening facing up, and holds it in position with its foot and its proboscis for hours until it's solidified. But what was really funny is one day I saw a picture of one of these carrier shells. They're called pallid carriers. And it's using what's in its environment. It used a bottle cap that it found in the ocean and attached it, but with the bottle cap facing up. So it, again, is thinking about how it's going to position these shells.
Can you bring her up solo again? Would you show the other carrier shell again?
Sure. So this is the geologist. And what I was saying is you can see the relationship if I turn them under, because that's the shell.
Yes.
These are the additions. And then, just so you can see, this has the same undercarriage,
Yes.
same shell, but it grows its shell, spreading out its center of gravity. In fact, meaning for the sunburst carrier, I read in a book, the way they phrased it was, at no time during its life does it form attachments, meaning other peoples, other rocks. So this is the loner shell. If someone's drawn to this, then at some subconscious level, they're feeling, I'm better off alone.
Yeah.
And then the other shells in the reading will explain details as to why. So that's one proof of their intelligence. I also want to show you the magic of mucus is what I call it. But people may have seen this scene before, the slime behind a snail. That mucus is lubricating its path because it's not crawling on its belly, it's crawling on its foot. The stomach is up inside the shell here, but it's lubricating the path. But that material has been used so many different ways by mollusks. One of them this little purple shell here. In kids' books, this is called the purple sailor, which I think is a great name for it. The Latin name is Janthina or Janthina. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, Janthina. But the purple sailor makes sense because they live on the surface of the ocean and they can't swim. So how can they stay on the surface of the ocean if they can't swim? They use that mucus like glue, and they glue air bubbles together, and they build a raft. So this is a picture of the Janthina on its raft of air bubbles. If it got separated from the raft, it would drown. So it's clinging to the bubbles for its survival. And that's why the meaning for the purple sailor, the Janthina, has to do with living in a fantasy and denial because they're clinging to those bubbles. Also, the animal is blind. So it's like you're clinging to the bubbles and you don't want to see anything else.
Wow.
Now,
I don't want to progress beyond that point.
Yeah, I think so.
The great thing about doing a reading is they could have had friends telling them, no, that's not the way things are. And they're blind to it.
Yeah.
But if they are doing a reading and they've picked this shell themselves and they're reading the back and it says, living in a fantasy world, clinging to the clouds, no desire to be shown anything different, a state of denial, that penetrates in a way nothing else could because they know they picked the shell. It's their message.
Right.
And I've seen that have more of an impact than anyone trying to tell them something.
We need to take our first break.
Okay.
So we're going to have a little word from our sponsor here. Nobody go away.
We'll be right back.
It's 1919, and Eric Laska returns from the war in Europe. Two new enemies await him in the small coal mining town he calls home. One is a threat to his relationship with Rebecca, the love of his life. The other, a bloodthirsty beast, is stalking the mining town residents. The townspeople suspect Eric of one of the killings. An old man and Rebecca's 11-year-old sister have seen the beast, but only Eric believes their story. To protect the town and clear his name, he's forced to prove the werewolf exists. Available on Amazon. The Horror Within by Marjorie Swift Doring.
Paradise, my prison. Charlie Flint awakens from a deep sleep and finds himself alone on a tropical beach surrounded by a palm tree jungle and exotic animals. He cannot remember who he is or anything about his life. First, he must find food and build shelter and protect himself from hidden dangers. As his memory gradually returns, it reveals what a very flawed person he is. A man who made too many mistakes, made too many enemies. The implications of the truth are staggering. How did Charlie get there? And will he save himself? Paradise My Prison is the riveting new suspense thriller from retired Hollywood scriptwriter George Dismukes. Paradise My Prison by George Dismukes is available in jacketed hardcover, softcover, and all ebook formats worldwide.
We're back.
Hello.
Hello.
During this little break and segue here, why don't we tell people where they can reach you? And your website is oceanoracle.com, and that's OCEANORACLE. And I'm assuming all of the other places where they can reach you are found on your website. Is that a good assumption
Yes,
or no?
that's
Okay.
a very good assumption. Yes.
All right. So then you can be found on YouTube at Ocean Oracle 7611. And we all know none of us get to pick the numbers. They're assigned to us randomly. Facebook is Ocean Oracle MH. And of course, the MH stands for Michelle Hanson. Instagram is author Michelle Hanson, and that's MICHELLEHANSON. And last, but definitely not least, because this is how you can get in touch with her, is email michelle@oceanoracle.com. So,
Thank you.
yeah, please look her up, get in touch with her, ask her questions. She's happy to instruct people. She has.
Happy.
Yes, I know.
I try my best to avoid shell shock because it ends up with information overload, I realize. But if you do have questions, please don't hesitate.
If you have shell shock, go ahead and ask Shelley.
Your books, they come in a kit, but if somebody wants the ebook,
Yes.
how is that going to be not work? Does that translate well? I guess I'm trying to say.
Honestly, I didn't think people would want an ebook of Ocean Oracle. That's the one that's the kit with the cards.
Mhm.
Because you're not able to use the cards to their full capacity, but they're all there in the ebook. You can see the fold out, so you can still pick your shells, and you can see the cards with the backs of the cards, so you can see what they do mean, but you can also refer to the book to see what they mean. But as I said, you can arrange them any way you want to, and some people are artistic and can picture arrangements, but sometimes it is just literally the shells show up in the sequence they need to for your message, because they also are aware. It's your higher self. Your higher self knows what your abilities are. So if it is trying to deliver a message, it's going to make it as easy as possible for you. And you could just be looking linearly at the shells as they pop out, and that's the sequence that you need them to be in.
Okay.
So the ebook does work.
Ebook works. Okay, that's
Yes.
the bottom line.
That was my concern. I appreciate your asking that.
but they'll probably have more fun with the kit
I think so.
because it's hands-on. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, some of us are very tactile and we like hands-on things. So, yeah, I can see
And
that.
Ocean Wisdom, the same question. Ocean Wisdom, the hardcover book, comes with a guided meditation. But the ebook has that same, because it's just an audio
Right.
meditation. So it has a link where you can still get the same sound effects and everything for the meditation. So you don't miss out on anything with the ebook.
Okay, great. That's awesome.
And we all need some meditation.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, with your seashell partners.
The very best of both worlds, meditation and seashell partners.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
How intelligent are snails?
Okay, so we were starting to talk about mucus and how they use mucus.
Mm-hmm.
Wait till I tell you about this one. This is called a harp shell. You can kind
Hold on,
of
we're going to put you up solo so people can see it really well. There you go.
So this is a harp. It's called the ventral harp. This has the most amazing use of mucus. Well, not the most of all, because everyone's got their own special way of using it. But the harp, I want to show you what the animal looks like. So let me hold the shell here, sort of in the position of,
Yep.
everything's backwards.
That's okay.
Okay, so the point of the harp on this end over here is over here.
Yep.
Okay.
No, over here. Sorry.
Okay.
So the animal is over here. You can see the proboscis sticking up and the two eyes.
Mm-hmm.
But this whole thing underneath, this whole thing is its foot. It's huge. A crab is looking at all that meat, and it's coming after the harp thinking, dinner for weeks, look at all that food. The harp has the ability to detach a little bit of its foot. It's not a huge sacrifice, it'll regenerate, but it does that like a salamander can drop its tail. And then that crab has a morsel to preoccupy the crab. The harp could get away. Instead, what these harps can do is while the crab is munching on that little bit of foot, the crab uses mucus, mixes it with sand, coats the crab, and the crab's oblivious because it's content with that little bit of foot, till all of a sudden the crab can't move with all that sticky, sandy mucus stuff, and then the harp eats the crab. It completely turns the tables.
So the heart mixes mucus with sand and puts it on the crab.
Correct.
All right.
Wow.
But first, it had to preoccupy the crab.
So it gave up part of its foot.
Right. So it's like a little sacrifice for a future reward.
And then it needs
it's amazing, but that's what they can do.
That's brilliant.
What does that say about you if you're attracted to that shell?
That, depending on the other details, it'll give you what the sacrifice needs to be.
Uh-huh.
But it's telling you, like, if you would make this little sacrifice, you could have a huge reward.
There you go.
Down the road.
Yeah. Big dividends from a little sacrifice.
Yes.
Got
so
it.
The intended victim will be the victor, a complete reversal. Present sacrifice for future reward. Now, you saw the raft, you saw the way they can turn the tables. Now I want to tell you about their compassion as well as their intelligence. That comes from this shell on the bottom. It's called a helmet conch. Well, actually, this shell is the helmet conch.
Yeah.
Okay, the animal's foot comes out through here. So this is the way they need to be to get around. I need to tell you that first. So the helmet conch was called that, I think, because people thought they looked like the helmets worn by ancient warriors.
By the conquistadors.
And yeah, it does resemble that. And so to me, this meant someone willing to fight for you, like an ally, someone on your behalf. And that was its message. Years later, I get this book by a biologist who is swimming under the water doing his recordings and observations. And he sees 3 helmet conchs. Whoops, I need this one more time. One is like this, and the other 2 are like this. And they're maybe 16 feet apart in a triangle. And he only tells this in hindsight. He ignored it at the time, just kind of saw it out the corner of his eye and figured, oh, somebody was collecting them and realized they're protected and threw them back in the ocean. And that's why one landed like this. Well, this one is a sitting duck. It can't go get food. It can't get purchased because its foot is up here and it's exposed to any predator. So it's in peril. And he continues his work, but he runs out of film in his camera. So he has to swim back to his boat. He gets more film for the camera and fills up his tank with more air. It's now hours later, and he swims back. And this time he sees the 2 conchs that were like this and were making their way closer to the one like this. And this gets his attention. So he sits back and he watches. And literally, the 2 come up to the one in trouble. Like little bulldozers, they dig the sand out around the bottom, come around behind, climb up, turn them over, and rescue them.
Amazing.
That means they had to care that someone was in trouble hours away from them. They had to, even though they weren't together, they were 16 feet apart, the two of them had to figure out a plan when they arrived that they could accomplish working together, and they did. And the reason I wrote Ocean Wisdom is because I wrote to him to ask permission to use his pictures. And when he granted me permission, I knew I had to write Ocean Wisdom. So the top picture, you can see the one on its side that's in trouble and the two that have arrived.
Yeah.
The middle picture, you can see the sand where there's sort of been bulldozers and loosening them up.
Yeah.
The bottom picture is where they've climbed up, turned them over, and saved them.
Wow.
That shows not only intelligence, but also great compassion. And these are snails.
Exactly. Amazing, isn't
That is
it?
crazy.
Isn't it? I don't think people
I think I can learn a lot from the animal kingdom. I really do. All animals, you know, it just blows my mind, the things they do. It's amazing.
It is. And if we will allow that, they're mirroring who we are. We have the same light bodies. And I believe we come down to earth, someone zips on a dog suit, someone zips on a snail suit, someone zips on a human suit, but inside we're all these light bodies. And the animals are like holding up mirrors saying, remember who you are. This unconditional love, you possess this too, but we get rid of our default programming. We make choices and we get away from that, but we are love. It's just, we make other choices down the road, and they kind of stick to that programming and show us what's possible.
I wonder how they, I mean, I'm sure those two conchs were not best friends and chatted about it. It's amazing that they could work together to help the third one, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. To come up with a plan, to care enough, they're really far away.
Right.
Go together and come up with a plan. But first of all, they had to care.
Yep. Yep.
Maybe they have Bluetooth.
No.
And they're smarter than I am. I can't figure out how to work my Bluetooth.
They've got to be telepathic. I mean, they've got to be able to get that thought to each other through the water.
I've seen videos of whales and dolphins thanking people for cutting them out of a net that drowned them and stuff. And you know they're thanking them. They don't say thank you, but they flip their tail. They stand up and
they make the effort to express their gratitude.
Yes, and know what they're trying to say. You know. It's amazing. It really is. The things that we can see, if we would just open our eyes and notice.
So with that said, now that we realize how intelligent they are, the lessons, just to give you an idea of the topics that they address, now you'll have to realize a snail can teach us about these things, but there's survival, conquering victimization, compassion, feeling flawed, feeling special, faith, hero's journey, surrender, love lessons. Oh, they teach about love. It's so fascinating. If you think of love like a wheel with all these spokes, every spoke is a different way of experiencing love. So there's a shell that addresses love as attention, love as quality time, possessive love, all these different types. And what we tend to do is pick one spoke. That's our spoke. And that's the only one we see on that wheel. So if I need you to show me that you love me through quality time, spend time with me, and you're sending me gifts, but you're never there, I don't feel loved. Or you're telling me you love me, but you're never there, I don't feel loved. So I feel starved for love because I'm only honoring that one spoke, quality time. And what the shells are saying is, if you were to get on the wheel, whatever spoke it takes, notice all the other spokes have equal value. Instead of feeling starved for love, you'll find that you have a feast.
Very good.
So that's their love lessons. They teach about judgment. They give you soul-searching questions about struggle and pride and vindication. Vindication is really important. When someone feels the need to be right, that's vindication. Looking at what you believe, that's where the subconscious really comes in, because if you can find out what you believe at a hidden level, and you need to be right about that. If someone thinks no one's honest, they're only going to experience dishonesty because it keeps saying, see, told you no one's honest. And they don't realize that that's in their subconscious. But when they get vindicated, it feels good. It's like love. It feels, oh my gosh, my self-esteem increases because I'm right. But at the same time, notice you could be miserable. No one's honest. How are you going to be happy? With some people, it's more important to be right than to be happy.
Yep.
Shells would teach you.
Which would you rather be, happy or right?
Right. Like, oh my gosh, I'm wrong, but how great that I'm wrong. They're actually honest people.
And we're all wrong.
If we're willing to admit it.
None of us are right all the time.
Well, there's two options that you have. You can either say it's okay to be wrong.
Yep.
Or you can change the thing that you're right about. So you'd be right if you think there are honest people. You can shift what you're right about. Either way, it will work.
Interesting.
Yeah. We need to take our last break. So if you all stick with us, we've got some more to talk about here. So here's another word from our sponsors.
The clock is ticking. Can Gracie uncover the truth?
Philip Pliant is the wealthy opportunist plastics dealer and CEO of Pliant Industries. He's also a master thief, creating a pervasive threat to the manufacturing infrastructure in the Caribbean islands markets. With the cartel as his stealth client, the naive city leaders have been seduced, enabling the production of more than three-dimensional building materials.
The expected profits are monstrous.
Is the art group, now led by Gracie and the family heirs, strong enough to win against this predator?
Can JJ's cats act on the root cause analysis in time?
Will Gracie be able to squash Pliant and the cartels?
Gracie never considered their lives would hang in the balance. The clock is ticking. 5, 4, 3.
Many secrets are hidden within the darkness of the jungle. Behold, this one about a man, a woman, a black jaguar, and an ancient Maya legend. Two Faces of the Jaguar is a novel by George Dismukes that will take you deep into the jungle and capture your imagination until the last word. Two Faces of the Jaguar is book one of a trilogy. Two Faces of the Jaguar, where only the adventurous dare to read.
Two Faces of the Jaguar, The Lost City, and The Jaguar's Quest are available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and many other bookseller websites. Two Faces of the Jaguar, the book people are talking about. Get your copy today.
Madison Jackson loved being a cop. A young girl is raped and murdered near Burnett Reservoir. Madison vows to get justice for the child. Madison travels to the heart of Mexican cartel country. She is kidnapped, tortured. Will Madison ever make it home? Justice by Kelly Marshall, only at Amazon.com.
And we're back.
We are.
Hello again.
Hello. Now, We're in our last few minutes of the show. Is there anything else that you wanted to speak about that you wanted everyone to know?
I wanted to ask something.
All right.
You had shown us before the show about the mimic octopus.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you would tell us about the mimic octopus.
Sure. Let me get that picture again. So now that people are aware of the octopus's ability to camouflage by changing color and texture, and the reason that's so important in their lives is their blood is copper-based. It's blue blood, which is not going to be very good at transporting oxygen. So they can't flee when they're being chased, but they shoot out ink, and that will put up like a smoke screen so the one pursuing can't see them. And there's also something in the ink I read that dulls the sense of smell. So if you can't see them and you can't smell them, they can hide in plain sight. And many people are familiar with the various forms of changing color and texture. But there's a species of octopus called the mimic. There's also one called the wonderpus now. And instead of changing color and texture, they rearrange their body to look like other animals. And so I have some pictures here. The top picture is a mimic that kind of looks like a crab. The second picture below that is a poisonous sea snake, but it's actually an octopus, the mimic, putting out just 2 arms to mimic that deadly snake. And the bottom picture is a flounder or a flatfish. And you can see that there's no internal skeleton. So just that little sac, that's its whole body right there, right there. It has long, long arms, and it puts all the arms in the same direction, and it swims in an undulating motion and mimics a fish. Theory is that they can then blend in with a school of fish and help themselves to a couple.
Amazing. It's really amazing.
Intelligence again.
I told you I've watched octopus do crazy things, like walking on 2 feet, looking like a person walking on 2 feet. And you're like, okay, that's nuts.
Absolutely.
They're fascinating. But we digress.
We do. Before we go, I would like, before you don't move forward or anything, but if you could show us that gigantic
one?
Oh.
Sure.
And what kind of shell is this?
This is called an Australian trumpet shell, or syrinx, Syrinx. And it is my largest shell. It's probably just about fully grown as an adult.
That's amazing. Can you hear the ocean in that one?
You can put your whole head in that
Probably,
one.
yeah, probably the whole planet. The fascinating thing is, I was talking about the shells. When they grow their shells, they're always adding on a new layer, but they have the original one they started with.
Mm-hmm.
There's an exception to every rule, and this is the exception. When these are very young, there is a tip that's maybe this much longer that breaks off. It's the only shell that does that, because this is sealed. It's not like it broke. It's planned into their DNA. I have a couple of these. One is more of a juvenile, and this is the adult. It basically means that you can outgrow your childhood stuff.
Interesting.
Interesting. It is.
It's really awesome. It's
So,
a beautiful shell. It's huge.
It is. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention, so this shell, the one that I told you about rescuing its comrades, its meaning is about trust, knowing that someone's got your back. But most of the time when people look at that picture, they're bothered by that shell. If you're bothered by it, it means that your trust has been shattered. Like someone you thought had your back let you down. And what happens when someone's trust is shattered, 2 things. One is they can't delegate to anybody because they don't want to give them the power to let them down. But the other is they will never say no because they know how it feels to be let down and they don't want to be the cause of that. So they're taking on everything. They're not delegating anything And eventually that means their standards are going to suffer. They're not going to be able to keep it up with all the things that they're taking on and not letting any of it go. So it's teaching you, like, how do you feel about trust?
Very interesting. Really interesting.
Very. Okay. So what anything else you'd like to share with us before we end up here?
I want people to realize how intelligent and compassionate shells are. I want them to see that they have so much to offer us. They're teachers, not in a human body. They have so much to offer to help us navigate through life.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Shelley.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me amend last time so that I could add on information, because there's still a lot I would like to share, but at least I feel better about people understanding them better.
Good.
Right.
Well, we're going to put you over to the side just for a minute.
Move you over there.
Yeah.
Thank you once again. And want to remind everybody this Saturday, the 14th of October, is a replay of the 100th episode celebration. Lots of authors and lots of fun we had with that one. And then next Wednesday is the Ridiculous series we're going to talk about with authors Jeffrey Kipple and Mindy Blackstein. And they're a husband and wife duo that wrote that one. So it should be a very interesting evening. And let's see, that's the same time next week, 7 o'clock, Wednesday, Eastern time. And do you have anything you would like to add?
Nope, I think we're good.
All righty then. So I guess until next time.
That's all, folks.
Bye.
Live every Wednesday, your Voice of Indie hosts Beam Weeks and Stephen Gees welcome authors, musicians, publishing industry pros, artists, and assorted creative guests for an exciting interactive hour. Call in during the show or post questions and comments on Twitter for responses in real time. Meet your favorite indie creators, learn inside tips, network, and promote your work. The link for each week's show is pinned on Twitter atop @VoiceOfIndie. And you can receive the link every Wednesday morning in your inbox by subscribing to our newsletter at freshinkgroup.com. Check out Voice of Indie every Wednesday on Blog Talk Radio and catch hundreds of episodes archived everywhere from our websites to our YouTube channel and Spotify.
Thank you for joining us here on Meet the Author. Make sure you stay up to date with our show by clicking like, follow, and share. And you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and more. See you next time on WLFE-DB.com.
You've been listening to WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows.